your hand, let us know who you are. Speak loudly so everybody can hear what you're asking, and then maybe if you guys can repeat the question too,
sure,
through the microphone so that the video can hear it. So, who's first? Don't be shy.
I'm Brian Flanagan. I don't have a question, but your presentation is just terrific. It just unrolls in a perfectly logical sort of way. It makes it easy to follow and assimilate what you're saying. So.
Cool, thank you. We really appreciate that. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Wendy Ford with the city. How do you plan to reach the students?
Sure, so the question was how do we plan to reach the students? And so we plan on resources. Resources is a huge piece of our equation, because with talking to the lenders, we found that there was a huge gap in understanding with the actual applications and the borrowers. And so we're actually putting out a video guide for borrowers, for students, and then graduate students to consolidate. And so one of the ways we're going to try to reach borrowers, because it's really tough to reach borrowers directly on campus due to the truth in lending laws. So maybe a gray area, a way around that, is to create resource tools. So more learning tools for borrowers and less selling directly at them. Matt's background falls in marketing, so he can talk more to that than I could.
Yeah, so we're going to take, I guess, kind of a multi-pronged approach to attack the borrowers. I mean, there's your obvious channels of pay-per-click and social media advertising, things like that. But where we really plan to differentiate ourselves with our content marketing strategy, and we've already seen a good amount of success with that. So in the month since we've launched, like I said, we've had over 2,500 unique visitors to our website from this content marketing strategy. And that's just putting out content that borrowers would want to read, stuff that they need to know, and stuff that they're looking for.
Reddit's a great tool.
Todd from Field Ventures. Would you elaborate on that truth in lending sort of barrier there when as it relates to the marketing strategy and where you got to be careful?
Sure. So colleges, their financial aid departments need to be very careful. There were some issues. The question was, how do we approach the colleges in terms of marketing? Is that
no truth in lending?
Oh, sorry. In terms of truth, with focus on truth in lending, and so there was some problems with financial aid departments receiving kickbacks in the past, and so the government's clamped down on that, and now colleges either need to have a preferred lender list, which has been audited and vetted by the department, and this preferred lender list shows the preferred lenders that the financial aid department has picked out. A lot of schools aren't even doing that anymore. They say, we don't want to have any involvement with private student loans because we don't want to get in trouble, and so what they tell their students to do is just Google it. So that's how we need to be careful with the schools. As far as truth in lending goes with our lenders, all of those disclosures would be felt on the lender's actual application.
Andy.
Andy Stoll from the Iowa Startup Accelerator. Could you talk a little bit about your other company, about why you chose, what was the process of discovering that maybe this wasn't for you? I think that's how you summed it up, but give us a little more of that story.
Sure, so the question was, could we talk a little bit more about Shop Tutors? And, sure, so Shop Tutors was started in January. Essentially, we tried to transform tutoring departments at colleges and universities by moving their entire system, which was normally a binder, online. And so that students could go on their phone, on a desktop, view tutors' availability, book and pay for those appointments online, and then everything that was then reported back to the school. And so we actually had two clients, the University of Delaware and Georgia Southwestern State University. And so things were going pretty well, but we realized that for the amount of money that we could afford to charge these programs, it was a nano business. I don't think it was a small business. It was a little bit smaller. And so we had to say, is it worth it? Because educational clients need a lot of support. They're always emailing you. They're always calling you. And we thought it would be as simple as turnkeying the platform for every additional school, but it wasn't. And so we had to ask ourselves, was the time we needed to put out in terms of support worth it for the amount that they could afford? And the answer was no, they couldn't afford it. And that was a crazy week following the shop tutors pivot.
So follow on from that, Amanda, with the Accelerator, what lessons have you learned from that experience that you're bringing into Common Loan?
Yeah, so the student lending industry is huge. I think we went from having one of the smallest markets at the Accelerator to one of the biggest in just about a week. And so I guess the biggest lesson is if you're going to work hard for something, make sure it's worth it in the end. Try to limit your selling interaction with educational institutions. That would be another one. It takes a long time.
Talk to your customers too before you build something. So with Shop Tutors, we built this awesome platform, and then we went and approached the school and did the market sizing and stuff, and it took us 9 months to figure out, this isn't big enough. But with this, as soon as we had the idea for Common Loan, the next day we picked up the phone and called as many lenders as possible. We were on LinkedIn, hitting up, Discover, every major lender we got in talks with before we even built it. So I guess one of the most important things, and something the Accelerator really, I guess, taught us, and that one of the biggest takeaways from the program has been talk to your customers first.
Yep. I would agree.
Adam Ingersoll, built by Iowa. Talk a little bit about how you see the market evolving as you're moving into it. So, for example, right now, the relationship with the lenders, they don't see you as a threat. You're just a potentially new source of good leads, and that's great. But the market size number that you showed, if you were seeing any significant penetration into that, then you become potentially not just a harmless partner of these lenders, but potentially more of a threat. How do you see this, assuming you're succeeding, playing out that relationship?
So the question was, as we continue to grow, would we be a threat to the lender?
Right now they're happy to pay for leads. How long will that be true?
Sure. So like the airline industry and travel industry with Expedia and Priceline, we're hoping to form a marketplace that you need to go to and that the lenders need to be a part of if they want to be included in the comparison shopping process. As of right now, they want as many leads as they can get. The more leads they get, the more options they have in terms of loans. As we progress, we hope that we're going to have enough traction to the point where that they need to be on it. That if they're not on it, those loans could be going to their competitors. We've had a couple lenders even tell us that we won't do this until our competitors are doing it, and we need to do it. And so if we can get the lenders to a point where they need to be on the platform, I think that would answer the question.
You put this big number up there and said this is like the market share. And
Sure.
you said we think we can get 25%. Can you give how you arrived at that 25% sort of?
Sure. So it's as simple for us as when you go on Google and you type in student loans, you're going to see Wells Fargo, Sallie Mae, and Discover every single time. That's the top three. And so that's where students are clicking. That's where borrowers are clicking. And so we are putting ourselves with those three and then dividing the market by 4. We've tried to get market sizing and market penetration in terms of LendingTree, because we're essentially duplicating LendingTree's business model, but we haven't had too much luck. It's something we're going to be working hard in the next 36 days of the Accelerator to flesh out.
As someone with student loan debt, I'm suspicious of any for-profit company that wants to sort of talk to me about student loans. Have you thought about restructuring your business so that you're a nonprofit? You can still charge that amount, but just from a personal level, just saying nonprofit and having some sort of charitable aim to actually educate people about student loan debt seems to make you more legit, while just being another student loan company out there in some shape or form just seems suspicious.
So the question was, have we considered forming a nonprofit versus a for-profit company to build more trust with our population that we're going for. So we are .org, commonloan.org, but we are we are very much for-profit at this point. Coming from Shop Tutors, that was a nonprofit company, I think we've set our sights on profitability. As far as becoming a nonprofit, I can't say we've given it too much thought. Just the honest answer, we haven't really talked about it. Well, that's something we could look into, but I don't think I have a good answer.
You talk about knowing your customers with the, and with the increasingly hands-on role that parents are having in the student experience. How do mom and dad or guardian fit into kind of that, because they're micromanaging a lot of their...
Sure, so we, Matt and I both have student loans, and we did them ourselves. But we found after talking to students and our friends at our campus that parents are actually the ones submitting the private student loan applications. And so those are the people we're going for on the private student loan side. On the student loan consolidation business, we're going for recent graduates. And so most parents and students on the private student loan side only shop at one place. On the consolidation side, they usually go to at least two. So part of what me and Matt are aiming to do is educate both parents and students on the process of comparing and shopping around. And if we can make it as easy as possible for the student and the parent to shop around, I think they will, versus submitting four or five applications. I'm not sure if that answered your question.
No, I did, yeah, it's kind of the marketing strategy for mom and dad. And
Yeah, we see the parents. A lot of our content surrounds around personal finance and savings, and because if we can get in front of people that care about saving and care about their personal finances, I think there are a lot of ties, and so we're definitely hitting the parent side as well.
There's like a collective recoil over here, the nonprofit possibility. I think Todd showed. However, it's a really good point. I mean, you're in a space, lending, financial stuff, that is like the third spammiest behind things I don't need to mention. So the trust is a big deal. I was wondering, especially in the consolidation space where your consumer is a student, maybe working on trust by maybe in your conversion funnel, playing up that much more your personal story. You know, your better loans for students, by students. Have you thought about that as part of your...
Yeah, we think telling our story is going to be huge. We are trying to save money for borrowers, so it's a good headline, like students saving money for other students. And so we're definitely, as we get these integrations completed with TransUnion, start telling that story a little bit more. But any advice as to how we could play that up and how we could get that word out there would be definitely appreciated.
Kind of piggybacking off of that, one of the things that you could do to build trust, was just a thought that popped in my head, is creating content that creates value for your consumers, like throughout their college process.
Sure.
I worked in the bank for a little bit, and what I found is that the majority of college kids have no clue on how to manage their finances. So creating value and creating trust of how to manage your finances, and then being able to create that trust. And then if they have consolidations that they want to do, I could see that as a different marketing strategy as opposed to the initial student loans. And so that's actually one of the questions I had. How do you differentiate, or is there a difference between your initial student loan and then the consolidation process? There's a different marketing strategy for that.
Yeah, I would agree. Maybe Matt could speak to that.
Yeah, so there's definitely a different marketing strategy between the student loan consolidation and the in-school private student loans. I mean, aside from the technical details of the keywords you're going to be targeting and things like that, the ages you're targeting for in-school student loan consolidation, you're looking at about 23 to 26. So, content that's really targeted at students just out of college, whilst for the in-school private student loans, it's going to be parents are a big part of that, as well as high school seniors graduating, and then students that are still in school. So we're definitely taking a different marketing approach that we're using different keywords to target for each across our pay-per-click channels, different age groups across our social media advertising channels, as well as different content across our content marketing channels.
Cool.
You guys had $100,000 tomorrow, what would you do?
$100,000. Well, we would take a deep breath. Yeah, because we're very, very careful with our budget. Luckily, we didn't spend any money on shop tutors once we got our investment from the Iowa Startup Accelerator, which was good coming into Common Loan. As far as the $100,000 goes, I think we wouldn't spend it until we can actually have that full integration in place. And so we're expecting that full integration to be in place with at least 3 lenders by end of October. So if we got the $100,000 tomorrow, I think we would wait until the end of October, and then at that point, we would turn on the, PR engine and try to tell our story, get the word out, and then make some user interface improvements, because what we have today is very MVP.
So we got to wrap up here, so I'll ask you a last question. One of the reasons why we gather here is to find out if you guys need help from the community. So if there's some things that you're trying to work through or whatever, what's one thing that us as a community can help you guys move forward?
Sure. So this is a little specific. Our biggest hurdle today is figuring out with our lenders how we build our table to configure the estimated rates. So we're struggling with the lenders to get just enough information from them where they're not giving away their secret sauce, but enough information to give the borrowers. And so we have a couple ideas. We have a couple tables we presented to the lenders. One of them is weighing different variables of the credit score of importance, like debt to income, total debt, income, credit score, things like that, into an equation. And so another side we've been playing with is just very simple credit score. So if anybody has any expertise into how consumer lending and how rates are structured in consumer lending, that would be hugely helpful. Any PR advice, that would be also really helpful.
Is your question about how it looks to people going on the website, or is your question more about the actual algorithms that you use? And what's the...
So we have 5 partners today, and right now we're in the process of building out their tables that the borrower will never see. So once we run the soft credit check, that information is fed through the tables and produces an estimated rate. And so we have a couple ideas on how we're structuring those tables, and we're working with the lenders to do that. But any advice we could get so we could, be more educated when we're talking to the lenders would be very appreciated.
Awesome. Cool. Good job, guys. Thanks for sharing.